So hello everyone. That's a Jupyter. Excuse me, how is it properly called right now? I don't want to misname it, right? Jupyter contributor meeting. Frontends, kernels, server, accessibility. So welcome everyone. Link to the agendas in the chat. Let's just start going through the agenda in sort of a collaboration cafe format where the person who authored a bullet point, if they're here, should present it in some manner.
Okay, I think I can start. So I hope that I would start by saying, hey, I've released a new version of JupyterLab. Here it is, please test it. I cannot say that. And one of the reasons is that there's this issue with GitHub activity and our CI started failing just about an hour ago. I do not know what is the root cause of that. Maybe GitHub changed its response formats or something else broke. But on many pull requests, the release check is failing, which usually means it's not a great time to attempt publishing a release. And it seems to be coming from the GitHub activity package, which we use to generate the changelog. So this is more of a heads up for anyone who uses the same automation or uses this package or expected to see a new release by now. Once this is resolved, I intend to publish a new alpha for 4.6. And in that, I would like to bring your attention to two things. One is the addition of a shortcut for Markdown cells to toggle between bold and normal text. So this is PR 18329, where the kind of controversial bit is that we already had a Ctrl+B shortcut for toggling the file browser. Now, this new shortcut is only active when the code editor, either in file or in a Markdown cell, so either in Markdown file or Markdown cell, is focused and some text is selected. So the toggling of the file browser with Ctrl+B still works, but only in the command mode or when in a context where bolding is not expected to work. So I've merged the PR. I think this is reasonable, but should anyone have a reason to oppose that, please comment on the PR or open an issue. We can change the shortcut. So that's not going to be released very soon because that's targeting 4.6. I want to cut a new release so that everyone can test it. Even if we decide that we don't want to go with this specific shortcut, I think this PR is valuable in a merge state because it does add the command which then users can bind to any shortcut of their choosing. And of course, extensions can use this command as well. Moving to another thing that was merged, but not yet released, is the code mirror upgrade. So I will skip the other shortcuts. For now, the code mirror update is necessary to fix a problem in JupyterLab Vim, and it also pulls a number of fixes to the specific syntax highlighting for different languages and other edge cases. Unfortunately, it also brings a change to the code mirror DOM object which used to store a reference to the view. So view is a concept and a class editor view in CodeMirror, which could be used to get that editor view instance and manipulate it. So say you had only the DOM object and wanted to use the APIs, you could have just like used query selector or document.getById, and then .cmView would get you this editor view instance. Now this is changing because the new version of CodeMirror is adding a concept of a tile, and the tile holds the view, and then you can have decorations of parts of the editor, which is super cool and probably very useful for the AI kind of comparisons of parts like inline diffs and whatever else. But it will break some extensions. So in order not to break them, I first opened PRs in the extensions that I knew used the CMView to replace the access to CMView with public API, because CodeMirror also added a public API way to get from DOM to the editor instance, but it wasn't there for like from the beginning. It was only added at some point. And if we were using this public API throughout all the extensions and all the code base, it would have been great. Nothing would need to be done about it. But because I wrote the code, I am guilty of kind of not knowing about this public API, even though it was added a couple of years back. So I'm trying to clean up, and I think in the backport pull request, I will restore the CMView. I already pushed a commit which does that by basically monkey patching that onto the DOM object, and that restores the compatibility with all the extensions. This way we can backport the fixes to 4.5x branch of JupyterLab, and I'm not sure if we should also forward port this compatibility patch into 4.6, or if it's just enough to update the downstream usage in the two extensions that I am aware that use this property. If anyone has thoughts, please do let me know. Otherwise, something which I think deserves potentially more discussion is another new shortcut addition, which is shortcut for switching tabs, because JupyterLab can have multiple notebooks or editors open at the same time. We had this idea to increase accessibility and the ergonomics of switching between them, to add the same kind of shortcut as browsers use to switch between tabs, which is you press Control plus number and it goes to the tab with that number, or 0 access going to the last tab. There's a pull request which implements that. One question is about the whether we should use ASL Alt versus Control, so to not conflict with the browser behavior. The other question is probably what happens when there is multiple areas. So like if we split the view in two, I guess we should be going to the one which is active. So presumably we could have another shortcut to toggle between the subdivisions of the layout tree. I don't know if anyone has opinions on this behavior and addition of these shortcuts.
What is ASL Alt? What is a specific key? I'm not familiar.
sorry, this depends on your operating system. It would be control on Linux. Let me quickly double check. So it used to be a kind of a thing that was part of the browser specification, but it was deprecated since, but we still use that. So ASO virtual modifier corresponds to control key on Windows and Linux and command key on Mac.
Okay. Yeah, for me, that shortcut, outside of JupyterLab just switches tabs in my browser. So I guess we'll have to catch that, right?
The ASO alt number or the
Oh,
control
sorry, Alt. I missed the Alt part.
alt, yeah.
Seems
So
reasonable.
exactly the question is, should we avoid conflicting with the browser behavior, which I think was the design choice so far, or should we either conflict with it or at least have a easier way for the user to change the modifier key, because right now they would need to modify 10 shortcuts, which is maybe not terrible, but also not super friendly.
I like to bring comparisons. So for something like VS Code in the browser, they probably use that already. So we can check that out in like Coder or hitting like dot in the GitHub repo and see how they switch tabs just for a comparison point.
I think they are not avoiding conflicts that much. Yeah, they intercept control 1, control 2, but it does something different. Okay, Alt 1, Alt 2 switches between first and second tab in VS Code. Control 1, Control 2 switches between areas in the editor. So I think this is one of the differences between JupyterLab and VS Code. VS Code kind of does more what you expect from an IDE, whether it's in the browser or not. And JupyterLab assumes that it always operates in the browser and tries to make concessions, but this kind of leads us to this awkward choices where we have shortcuts which are very either unintuitive or require an extra modifier.
Yeah, makes sense.
For the record, for me and Firefox, macOS, Command number switches browser tabs, and in VS Code, Control number switches VS Code tabs. So they are distinct.
Yeah, same for me.
I think maybe if you're interested in helping with this conversation about what keyboard shortcuts to use, please comment on the PR and we can hash out all the possibilities there.
Nice.
It's a really interesting and important topic. I don't have an answer, so on my Mac, I also can't have a hard time making tab switch in JupyterLab. Yeah, let's go to the next one. Thank you.
Well, I think this is it from me. I don't see anyone else on the agenda, and we'll link that in the chat. I see that someone just joined, so maybe we can give them a minute in case if they wanted to bring up a PR or a topic.
I would love to hear, just as a thought exercise, we're at the beginning of the year. We have several sub projects represented on the call, at least nominally. What is the one thing you think the sub project should make sure gets done by the end of the year? Either a big weakness in the sub project or a big new feature that will help this sub project thrive in whatever the current state of the world is for these sorts of tools. I'm really curious if you had to pick like one item that just absolutely should be done by the end of the year, what that item would be. We don't have to have this conversation on the record too. We can wait till after the screen recording is done. I don't want anybody to feel pressure that they need to finish this project um, or we're, I don't know, for whatever reason, inhibited about by the recording. But I am curious to have this discussion, get some ideas. Maybe given silence. Let's have I'm curious to get people's thoughts off the record then.
Okay, let's stop the records then. As far as there are no more other items, right? So I shall stop the record.